My name is Marcus Vance, and at 42 years old, my Uncle Jerry tried to fire me from the very company I secretly bought out from under him 6 years ago. It happened at the Vance Timber annual gala, in front of 45 relatives, vendors, and local politicians. Jerry raised his glass, toasted his own son, Leo, and announced that Leo was taking over the executive suite. When I cleared my throat and mentioned a small detail about the company's actual overhead, Jerry laughed, a big booming sound that rippled through the ballroom. He pointed his finger at me, right in front of everyone, and said, "Marcus, you've always been a glorified clerk. Go fetch the car keys and let the real men run the legacy." The entire room erupted, but here is what none of them knew that night, and what my uncle was about to learn the next morning when our corporate compliance attorney walked through his office doors, shaking. Jerry believed he was passing down an empire. He had absolutely no idea. He had spent the evening promising away a multi-million-dollar timber operation that had legally belonged to me since 2020. Growing up in the Vance family meant learning exactly where you stood on the food chain. My father was the quiet brother, the one who worked the sawmills and died with sawdust in his lungs. Uncle Jerry was the face, loud, charismatic, and deeply insecure. When my father passed, Jerry took over, treating me like a charity case. I was given a desk in the back, running the logistics, the spreadsheets, the titles, the boring stuff they didn't want to touch. "Let Marcus handle the paperwork," Jerry would sneer at family dinners, pouring himself another scotch. "He's got the soul of an accountant." Leo, his golden boy, would smirk from across the table, fresh off another failed business venture that Jerry had quietly bailed out with company funds. I never argued. I just watched, and I read the ledger. Numbers don't have an ego, and they don't lie. By 2019, Jerry's reckless expansions had pushed Vance Timber to the absolute brink. They were 3 months away from a forced liquidation by the regional bank. Jerry had stopped opening the certified mail, hiding the notices in his bottom drawer, terrified of losing the family image. I didn't scream, and I didn't confront him. Instead, I used my own capital, built from private commercial real estate investments, and formed a blind holding company called Summit Crest Holdings. I secretly approached the bank, bought out the entire distressed debt package, and converted it into a strict equity ownership deed. Because Jerry signed the emergency restructuring paperwork without reading the fine print, too relieved to ask where the bailout money came from, he never realized he had signed over 100% of the company voting shares to Summit Crest. To me, for 6 long years, I let them keep the illusion. I let Jerry wear the custom suits. I let Leo drive the company lease Mercedes. I did it because I wanted to protect my aunts and cousins from the shame of a public bankruptcy, but mostly because I knew that if Jerry found out his clerk nephew had saved his skin, his pride would curdle into something truly malicious. Until the night of the gala, when Jerry publicly humiliated me, calling me a driver in front of the entire county, something shifted inside me. The years of quiet patience evaporated. I didn't make a scene. I simply looked Jerry dead in the eye, said, "Understood," and walked out into the crisp autumn night. The next morning at precisely 8:30, I walked into the executive suite. Jerry was already there, pouring champagne for Leo, celebrating the transition. When our lead attorney, Sarah, entered the room with a thick leather folio, Jerry smiled. "Ah, Sarah, drop the transfer papers on the desk. Let's make Leo's title official." Sarah didn't smile. She looked at Jerry, her face completely pale, and said, Jerry, you can't sign these. You don't have the legal authority to transfer a single share." Jerry's laugh died in his throat. "What are you talking about? It's my name on the building." Sarah quietly opened the folio, sliding a certified corporate registry across the mahogany table. Vance Timber was fully acquired by Summit Crest Holdings 6 years ago, and the sole owner of Summit Crest is sitting right next to you. Jerry stared at the paper. His eyes tracked the signature at the bottom. Marcus Vance. The silence in that room was absolute, save for the steady ticking of the old grandfather clock against the wall. The deep dark red color crawled up Jerry's neck. He slammed his fist down, shouting about betrayal, tricks, and lawsuits. He turned his rage on me, jabbing that same finger in my face. "You snake, you bought my company to humiliate me?" I didn't raise my voice. I leaned back in my chair, took a slow sip of my coffee, and said, "I bought your company so your employees wouldn't lose their pensions, Uncle Jerry. You're welcome." The golden boy, Leo, stood in the corner, staring at his shoes, realizing the Mercedes lease was about to expire. I didn't ruin them. I didn't throw them out on the street. That would be messy. Instead, I had Sarah lay out the new terms. Jerry was retired, effective immediately, with a modest, tightly controlled consultant salary. Leo was moved to the logistics warehouse, learning the business from the bottom up, with a timesheet he actually had to punch. As I walked out of the office to take my new seat at the head of the table, Jerry slumped into his chair, looking older and smaller than he ever had in his life. He looked up, his jaw working, and muttered a strained, "Thank you." It wasn't a real apology, but for a man like him, it was the heaviest word he could carry. Silence is a shield, until people mistake it for permission to crush you. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let the paperwork do the talking.